Opening scene, the return. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the worn-down house that Daniel hadn't seen in 10 years. The air was thick with the scent of dry earth and old memories, the kind that never really fade. As he stepped onto the porch, the wooden planks groaned beneath his weight, a whisper of the past he once ran from. Then came the voice, sharp and cold. "Why are you here?" Daniel turned. Lucas stood there, his younger brother, his judge and jury. The years had hardened his eyes, filling them with a resentment that cut deeper than any words ever could. The return. The sun had almost vanished, leaving streaks of deep orange and purple bleeding across the sky. The wind carried the scent of dry earth, of pine, of something faintly familiar yet distant, like a memory that refused to fully resurface. Daniel stood at the edge of the driveway, staring at the house that once held his entire world. It looked smaller now, aged and tired, the paint peeling at the corners, the wooden steps warped by time. His fingers tightened around the steering wheel of his car, but he didn't move. He had spent 10 years running from this place, from the ghosts trapped inside it, from the guilt that clung to his bones like a second skin. And yet, here he was, back where it all started. A flicker of light from the front window told him someone was inside. His chest tightened. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times, rehearsed every word he might say. But now that he was actually here, his mind was blank. Daniel inhaled sharply, pushed the car door open, and stepped out. The crunch of gravel under his boots echoed in the stillness. Every step toward the porch felt heavier, like wading through a river of the past, the current threatening to pull him under. The second his foot touched the first wooden step, the front door swung open, and there he was. Lucas. His younger brother stood in the doorway, framed by the dim glow of the hallway light. He hadn't changed much, but his face, his expression, was different, harder, sharper. The softness Daniel remembered was gone, replaced by something colder, something unyielding. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lucas' voice cut through the silence. "Why are you here?" Not a question, a challenge. Daniel swallowed. He had expected this, prepared for it, but knowing it was coming didn't make it hurt any less. "I came to see Mom," he said, his voice steady, though his hands clenched at his sides. Lucas let out a sharp breath, almost a scoff. After 10 years, his lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "That's rich." Daniel looked down, exhaling slowly. "I know I." "No," Lucas snapped, stepping forward. "You don't get to walk back in here like nothing happened. Like you didn't just—" He stopped himself, his jaw tightening, his fists clenched at his sides, mirroring Daniel's. The front porch light buzzed faintly, filling the tense silence between them. Daniel forced himself to meet his brother's eyes, to face the anger, the hurt, the years of resentment he had left behind. "I'm not here to pretend nothing happened," Daniel said quietly. I needed to come back." Lucas let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "Yeah, well, maybe you're too late." Daniel's chest ached at the words, but before he could say anything else, another voice called from inside. "Lucas!" Their mother. Lucas hesitated for half a second before stepping aside, just enough for Daniel to see past him into the house, the home he had abandoned. Daniel took a breath. Then, despite the weight of the past pressing down on him, he stepped forward. The divide. Daniel stepped past the threshold, the familiar scent of aged wood and faint traces of his mother's lavender perfume wrapping around him like a ghost of the past. The house hadn't changed much. The same worn-out rug in the hallway, the same old photographs lining the walls, frozen moments of a family that once was. But the warmth he remembered was gone. Instead, the air felt thick, heavy with something unspoken. Lucas shut the door behind him, the sound loud and sharp, like a gavel striking wood. "Mom's in the kitchen," Lucas said. His voice clipped, barely more than a grunt. Daniel nodded, but neither of them moved. The tension between them was palpable, pressing down like an invisible force. Lucas crossed his arms, leaning against the wall, his eyes locked onto Daniel like he was waiting for him to break. 10 years, Lucas finally said, his voice low, simmering with something dark. 10 years, and you just show up like none of it mattered. Daniel exhaled, forcing himself to stay calm. It did matter. It still does. Lucas let out a cold laugh. Yeah, sure didn't seem like it when you walked out that door and never looked back. Daniel flinched, but he didn't look away. He had expected this. He deserved this. "You think I didn't care?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "That it was easy for me to leave?" Lucas pushed off the wall, stepping closer. "You didn't just leave, Daniel. You disappeared. You left me here to pick up the pieces, to take care of Mom after Dad." His voice cracked for the briefest second, but he swallowed it down, eyes burning with resentment. "You don't get to come back now and act like you care." Daniel's throat tightened. He had played this conversation out in his head 1,000 times, but none of his rehearsed words seemed right now, because Lucas wasn't just angry. He was hurt, deeply. "I know I messed up," Daniel admitted. "I should have been here. I should have called. I should have." "But you didn't," Lucas cut him off, his voice razor-sharp. "You left me to watch Mom cry herself to sleep for years, wondering why her son abandoned her. You left me to deal with everything alone." The words hit like a fist to the gut. Guilt, sharp and unrelenting, coiled in Daniel's chest. He opened his mouth, but no words came. What could he say? What excuse could possibly justify 10 years of silence? Lucas shook his head, his jaw tight. "You don't get to fix this, Daniel. You don't get to waltz in here and pretend like we can just pick up where we left off." Daniel swallowed hard. "I'm not asking you to forget, Lucas. I'm just asking for a chance." Lucas stared at him for a long moment, something flickering in his expression, pain, anger, maybe even longing. But then, just as quickly, it was gone. "Mom's waiting," he muttered, turning on his heel and walking down the hall. Daniel stood there, exhaling shakily. He had known this wouldn't be easy, but facing his brother's pain, seeing the damage he had caused, it was worse than he had imagined. Bracing himself, he followed Lucas toward the kitchen, knowing that the hardest part was still ahead. A mother's plea. The kitchen was just as Daniel remembered it. Warm light spilling from the hanging lamp, the scent of rosemary and old recipes lingering in the air. But it felt different. The room once filled with laughter and the clatter of shared meals now felt like a fragile memory, something just barely holding itself together. And at the center of it all was their mother. Eleanor sat at the small wooden table, her frail hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had likely gone cold. Her once vibrant eyes, the ones that had always carried so much warmth, now held a quiet exhaustion. The moment she saw Daniel, she inhaled sharply. Her lips parted slightly, as if trying to form words she had long forgotten how to say. Then, slowly, she pushed herself up from her chair, her movements slower than he remembered, weaker. "Daniel." Her voice trembled, caught between disbelief and something deeper, something fragile, like a hope she had stopped allowing herself to feel. His chest tightened. He wanted to say something, anything, but the lump in his throat made it impossible. So instead, he just nodded, his hands clenching at his sides. Lucas stood beside her, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, until Eleanor broke it with a shaky breath. "You came back," she whispered, as if saying it out loud would make it real. Daniel swallowed hard. "Yeah, Mom, I did." Her lips quivered, and before he could react, she took a slow, hesitant step forward, and then another, and then she wrapped her arms around him. Daniel froze for a second, his breath catching in his throat. He hadn't felt his mother's embrace in over a decade, but now, as she clung to him, he realized how much he had missed her. "I thought I lost you," she murmured against his shoulder. His eyes burned. He had promised himself he wouldn't break down, but hearing her say those words shattered something inside him. Guilt crashed over him like a tidal wave, drowning out every excuse, every justification he had told himself over the years. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I should have come back sooner." She pulled back just enough to look at him, her hands cupping his face, her thumbs brushing over the stubble on his cheeks. "You're here now. That's what matters." A sharp scoff broke the moment. Daniel turned, finding Lucas staring at them, his expression a storm of emotions, anger, resentment, and something even heavier. "Yeah," Lucas said bitterly. "It's just that easy, huh?" Eleanor sighed, her gaze flickering between her sons. "Lucas, please," she murmured, a quiet plea laced in her voice. "This family has been broken long enough." Lucas let out a bitter laugh. "Broken? Mom, this isn't just about a misunderstanding. He left. For 10 years. And now what? We're just supposed to act like it didn't happen." Daniel exhaled slowly. "I know I can't undo the past, Lucas. But No, Lucas cut him off, his voice sharp. "You don't get to walk back in and rewrite the story to make yourself feel better." Eleanor reached for his arm, but he pulled away, his jaw clenched. His shoulders were rigid, like he was holding back years of anger, of words he had never been able to say. "I held this family together when you left," Lucas continued, his voice shaking. "I watched Mom fall apart. I was the one who picked up the pieces, who stayed, who did everything you were supposed to do." Daniel's chest ached at the weight of his brother's words. "Lucas," their mother said softly, her voice lined with both love and sorrow, "I know how much you've sacrificed, and I know how much pain this has caused you." She turned to Daniel. "But we don't have time for anger anymore. We don't have time to waste." Daniel frowned. "Mom, what are you saying?" Eleanor hesitated, and for the first time since he arrived, a flicker of fear passed through her eyes. Lucas looked away, jaw tight. Daniel's stomach dropped. Something was wrong, and whatever it was about to change everything. Unspoken truths. A heavy silence settled over the room, thick enough to suffocate. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest as he studied his mother's face, the hesitation in her eyes, the way her fingers trembled slightly against the rim of her mug. He knew that look. It was the same one she wore the night their father left, when she sat at the kitchen table, trying to hold herself together as their world crumbled. "Mom," Daniel said carefully, his voice softer now. "What's going on?" Eleanor's lips parted, but for a moment, no words came. She looked toward Lucas, almost as if she needed his permission to speak. Lucas clenched his jaw, shifting his weight uncomfortably. Then, with a sharp exhale, he finally muttered, "She's sick." The words hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. His stomach twisted, his pulse roaring in his ears. "What?" he breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. "She has heart failure," Lucas said bluntly, his tone clipped, guarded, like saying it out loud would make it any less devastating. "Doctors say it's getting worse." Daniel's gaze snapped back to his mother, searching for some kind of denial, some reassurance that Lucas was exaggerating. But she didn't say a word. She just gave him a sad, knowing smile. "I didn't want you to find out like this," Eleanor admitted softly. "But, sweetheart, I don't have much time left." The room blurred at the edges. Daniel felt like the air had been knocked from his lungs. He had spent so many years staying away, convincing himself that coming back wouldn't change anything, that he had all the time in the world to make things right. But time had betrayed him. "How long?" he managed to ask, his voice hoarse. Eleanor hesitated, then said, "Months, maybe less." Daniel's hands curled into fists, his nails digging into his palms. Guilt clawed at his chest, pressing down like a weight he couldn't lift. All those years, all the phone calls he ignored, the holidays he missed, the moments he had let slip through his fingers. He had wasted so much time. "I should have been here," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I should have." "But you're here now," Eleanor interrupted gently, reaching across the table to take his hand. "And that's what matters." Lucas scoffed, the sound bitter. "Is it, though?" His arms were still crossed, his posture rigid. "Because I've been here, Daniel. Every damn day. I've taken care of her, taken care of everything while you—" He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "And now, when there's nothing left to fix, you suddenly decide to show up?" Daniel turned to him, raw emotion flashing in his eyes. "Do you think I don't hate myself for that?" He shot back, his voice rough with guilt. "Do you think I don't regret every single day I stayed away?" Lucas didn't respond. His jaw tightened, his gaze locked on the floor. Eleanor squeezed Daniel's hand, pulling his attention back to her. "I don't want to spend whatever time I have left watching my boys tear each other apart," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I want to see my family whole again, even if it's just for a little while." Her words hung in the air, fragile yet powerful. Daniel swallowed hard, his chest tight. He looked at Lucas, searching for some sign that he was willing to meet him halfway. But Lucas just shook his head. "I don't know if I can do that," he muttered before turning and walking out of the kitchen, leaving Daniel standing there with the crushing weight of his mother's plea. The choice. The house was silent after Lucas left, but the air still crackled with unspoken words, heavy with the weight of everything that had been said and everything that hadn't. Daniel sat frozen in his chair, his mother's hand still wrapped gently around his. His pulse pounded in his ears, drowning out the ticking of the old kitchen clock. His mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, but none of them could change the truth staring him in the face. His mother was dying, and his brother might never forgive him. Eleanor squeezed his hand, grounding him in the moment. When he looked up, she gave him a soft, tired smile. "You don't have to fix everything, sweetheart," she said. "You just have to try." Daniel exhaled, shaking his head. "I don't even know where to start." "Then start small," she whispered. "Start with love." But love wasn't always enough. Love didn't erase 10 years of absence, didn't wipe away the hurt and resentment that had built up like a wall between him and Lucas. Love couldn't change the past. Still, it was all he had. He pushed back from the table, his chair scraping against the worn wooden floor. "I'll be back," he told his mother, determination settling in his chest. Her eyes softened, but she didn't ask where he was going. She just nodded. Daniel stepped out into the cool night air, his breath visible in the dim porch light. Lucas stood near the edge of the driveway, arms crossed, his posture rigid. His back was turned, but Daniel knew his brother well enough to recognize the tension in his stance. Daniel hesitated. Apologies weren't magic words. They didn't undo years of silence. But maybe, just maybe, they were a place to start. He took a slow step forward, then another. "I was a coward," Daniel admitted, his voice quiet but firm. "I ran because it was easier than facing everything. Facing you. Facing Dad leaving. Facing losing everything." Lucas didn't turn around, but his shoulders tensed. Daniel swallowed hard and kept going. "And I know that no matter what I say, it won't change what I did. It won't make up for the fact that you had to carry everything alone." Silence. Then Lucas let out a bitter chuckle. So what? You're here now, and I'm just supposed to forgive you. Daniel exhaled. No, I don't expect that. But I want a chance to be better. To be here for Mom. For you. Lucas finally turned, his face unreadable. For a long moment, he just stared at Daniel, as if searching for something. Maybe sincerity, maybe regret, maybe both. Then, with a sigh, he looked away. Mom doesn't have much time. His voice was quieter now. Less sharp, more raw. I know. Lucas ran a hand through his hair. If you screw this up again, I swear to God. I won't, Daniel cut in. For the first time that night, Lucas didn't have a snarky remark. He just gave Daniel a long look before nodding slightly and walking back toward the house. Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. It wasn't a perfect ending. It wasn't a grand reconciliation, but it was something. A step forward. And maybe, for now, that was enough. What would you do? Family wounds don't heal overnight. Sometimes, they never fully heal at all. But in the end, is it better to let pride and resentment keep us apart? Or to take the risk, face the pain, and try to make things right before it's too late? What do you think? Would you forgive someone who left you behind? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another thrilling story. See you in the next one.